Hello everyone and welcome to Stoked, the ultimate Star Trek online podcast. My name is Chris and good morning to everyone in the jblive.tv chat room. Thank you everyone who joined me live today to do the big show live on a Saturday. Now I've got a really great show lined up for you today. Coming up in the news roundtable. Well, look at the chat room's going crazy. They're saying good morning. Coming up in the news roundtable, we've got more changes coming to the free-to-play side of the game. And along with those are some positive changes that I'm looking forward to sharing with you. Then in the math segment, there's been some skill changes as well as a new cannon to hit the game. Is the cannon the most powerful weapon you've seen yet? Or are there maybe some negatives? We'll talk about that in the skills section. The math section will be about skills and that. And then at the end of the show, it'll be community feedback. Now, I haven't done one of these for a while, so I'm excited about this. It's an entirely new question. So you'll have to stick around to the end of the show to get that, and then we'll want you to send in your questions or your answers to the community feedback question to STOked@jupiterbroadcasting.com. But stay tuned for all of that. Now, I actually have something pretty exciting to share with you that I thought I'd talk about at the top of the show before we got going, and that is that yesterday was my last day of work. Can you believe it? I'm actually doing this full-time now. At least I'm giving it my best. I'm going to try for a little while to make Jupiter Broadcasting my full-time gig. And I'm up. Thank you, chat room. Chat room says clap. Thank you. And I'm really excited about it. And I hope it means more shows and more energy and passion for those shows, more focus by me, and some things you haven't seen yet. Maybe bring some things back that I know some of you out there have loved, or at least in some iteration of them. It also means I'm taking on sponsorships, so if you'd like to sponsor some of our shows, you can go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com/advertise. And one of the first sponsors I've lined up for this show specifically and for our SciByte show, because it's such a perfect fit, is audible.com. Now, you have to use the link in our show notes for this deal, but Audible is offering a free book if you sign up for a membership plan. And I have the perfect free book for you. It's called Ready Player One. It's narrated by Will Wheaton, and it takes place kind of like in the near future where the economy has collapsed, but there's this massive MMO game that essentially the entire civilization is playing now. Like, picture like Second Life, but if everyone played it, and there was hardware made specifically just to play this MMO. Well, the creator of this MMO was a huge fan of the 80s and the 90s. And he goes on and he adds all of these elements that are references to the 80s in this game, and then he dies, and he creates this massive Easter egg in the game that if anyone can find it, they get all of his wealth. But on the whole way there, you find out all of this great 80s trivia about video games and movies. It's all narrated by Will frickin' Wheaton, and he does a fantastic job. And you know Will Wheaton gets the jokes as he's reading them, so that's even more enjoyable as a listener. Here, take a little sample.
Played all of my favorite news and entertainment vid feeds. Among these was my own channel, Parzival TV, broadcasting obscure eclectic crap, 24/7, 365. Earlier that year, GSS had added a new feature to every Oasis user's account, the POV, Personal Oasis Vid Feed channel. It allowed anyone who paid a monthly fee to run their own streaming television network.
Oh, that sounds good.
Anyone logged into the simulation could tune in and watch your POV channel from anywhere in the world.
I think Cryptic needs to add that to Stoked so people could watch Stoked inside the game, right? Anyways, it's a great book. The reviews alone are off the charts. I have one here. If you go and you look at the reviews on audible.com, just 5 stars, 4 stars. People absolutely love it. People call it an awesome genre book. You've got to check it out. And if you use the link in the show notes, you get it for free. And the cool thing about those Audible memberships is it's a 14-day free trial. If you sign up, get the free book, and cancel, you still get to keep the book. So that's kind of cool. And you can also just buy the book outright, but we don't get quite as much credit for that. Anyways, that's a great book. I want to tell you about it because, hell, it's so up all of our alleys. And if you buy that book, you help support the show and support the network. So thank you very much. And thank you to audible.com for sponsoring Stoked. Now, with all of that said, let's move in to the news roundtable. And welcome to the Stoked News Roundtable. This week, I'm joined by 2 gentlemen, Peregrine Falcon and Irish. Hi, guys. Welcome back to the show.
Top of the morning to you, Chris. How's it going?
Now, we've got a ton of stuff to cover this week, so let's jump right into it, including some positive stuff that we'll get to towards the end of the news segment. But up first, let's talk about new ships. Right, Irish?
Yep, there's some new stuff there. Bellerophon and Gladius made their way out onto Holodeck this week. We talked a little bit on one of the previous episodes about those when they were over on Tribble. The bigger thing with those ships, though, is been positive and negative, probably going to annoy you a little bit, is that there's an actual account limit now on how many ships you can have, or at least there will be soon.
It's like 28 or something, right?
Yeah, 28.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to affect your private collection, though.
I think, you know what, I think I have 20 or something around that range. Pretty much, I have close to all of them, if not all of them. So it's, what is it, like now 22 is the max you could have in game, something like that?
28 now, yeah.
It is 28 now?
stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yes. One of the devs said that the reason for it was because if you had too many ships, then it actually caused lag for everyone that was in the instance with you.
Oh, okay.
I really can't imagine why that would be, but...
Probably some, well, so, I mean, you know, that's not, it almost becomes unmanageable when you have that many ships anyways.
Right.
So, yeah, and that's what, you have alts. That's not that big of a deal. I do like to ship hop, though, so it does kind of suck, but I could also just alt hop if I had to.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the fact that if you've got so many ships on the one character, because you could just drop down to Shuttle Bay and swap around a little bit, maybe that's the problem.
You have to carry all that with you?
Maybe that data has to be brought with the character in that zone. Maybe that's why it's lagging everyone else out.
Yeah. So, it's probably not an issue for most players, but I think some of the hardcore people that are really ship nerds are probably like myself, a little like, that's too bad.
Yeah, there was a few people that weren't happy with it, but I think for the most part it was sort of a non-issue.
Yeah.
The bigger issue, though, is that first Stormshade and then later Gecko, they confirmed that ships are going to remain account-wide unlocks. And that's important because for a while there, we weren't sure that was going to be the case.
You think it was going to be character only?
Well,
it was a suspicion and a fear more than anything else. It's a lot of people just looked at the trends that were happening, and it'll link into what we talk about a little later, this whole tribble gate thing, where people were really concerned about things moving from account unlock to character unlock, and not just items that were like fluff, like tribbles and things, but actual ships. That's what panicked people. And then that was kind of settled out on Monday when the guys got on the forums, like Stormshade and Gecko got on there and just kind of put a lot of those fears to rest.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense with something like a ship because those are sometimes some of the more expensive items in the game. And you don't necessarily want to spend a lot of money on a lower-end ship that you're only going to use for a few weeks, maybe a month or so. So you want something that you could later use on a new character when you roll them, and you're like, oh, in fact, I love that. I love the fact that when I start a new character, I can throw them in the NX immediately.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason that this became a concern was because people discovered that when they went onto Tribble, that all the pets and tribbles had become character-only unlocks, much like the ANR Bridge Officer and the Cation Bridge Officer.
I see.
Now, this wasn't in the patch notes anywhere. It wasn't announced anywhere. It just sort of happened. And so people, and of course, it was the weekend, so people were talking, and
So it
nobody
kind
was
of got blown
answering.
out of proportion a little bit.
Right, and people were getting upset, and, it was feeding on each other. And I think some people still aren't happy with it, but I think it's an advantage because now I, for example, have the Tribble of Borg. It's account-wide, but I can only have one, okay? But now, when this goes live, now I can still only buy that one Tribble, but then I can buy another one and another one. I can give you one. I could sell one to Irish. I can throw one up on the exchange. I can give one to each of my bridge officers.
Right.
Hang on, you're going to give him one, but you're going to sell one to me?
Yeah, well, come on.
Exactly.
Come on.
You're off the Christmas card list.
Well, all right, so I guess that it's not necessarily all negative then that it's going to be account only.
No, one of the things there that's important to note is, and this is something that it's more of a concern with the communication part of it, was that it was discovered by someone playing around on Tribble and finding that, this is a character unlock Tribble. That's why it's called Tribble Gate. Someone discovered it by accidentally seeing this on a Tribble. And then it just grew and grew until it was... Rage is probably a little lower than the word. It actually got to the point where a C-store boycott was called for. This is why the Tribble Gate thing is...
Right.
I had it as a separate news item, but a lot of it has been dealt with by Stormshade and Gecko with the communication last Monday. And pretty much what remains from it is just that people are now needing to understand that we may be used to this account unlock thing, but the game has to be monetized for free to play. They have to be able to fund the system somehow. So we're going to see more of this character unlock stuff. And that means the older guys who've been around with the lifetime subs and are going to be subscribers, we hope, in the new system, are going to have to deal with the fact that you're going to have character unlock items coming out. Now, maybe there's a possibility there to have something on the lines of you pay X amount for a character unlock and you pay a little higher or a lot higher for an account unlock.
Interesting.
It's up in the air. It's just something that that's the main concern moving forward. The initial problem was dealt with by comps.
This is an interesting deal because, yeah, like you said, people were really upset. And there is some justification because something you once had is no longer had. And people feel like they're the deal's getting changed on them a little bit in that degree. But
but the deal isn't getting changed, though. That's the thing.
Point. Gecko saying that in the chat room is important, that anyone who's already purchased an account unlock retains it in the new system.
That's what I was going to say is, so if you already have this set up, you're not getting anything taken from you. It's just future purchases and for future new accounts, that's where it'll matter. Yeah. That's not so bad. Really.
No, it's not as bad as what was assumed, but it was just because you had I won't say communications blackout, but we had a definite lack of information. And then someone spots it, and then that just snowballed to the point where panic.
I guess so. Yeah. And I know people are just really sensitive to all of that stuff right now. So I don't want to say anything really negative about that because it's just, I think sometimes we have to remember that like people go home for the weekend sometimes.
Yeah.
And this is their job and they go home. Now, of course, that probably doesn't quite fit with the community. The community probably becomes more active on the weekend. So it's kind of a bit of a flip-flop, but what are you going to do? They're a business. People go home and rest and recharge, at least hopefully some of them do. Except for Jeremy.
The thing about it is, Chris,
I hope they work his ass off. What?
It could have been put in the patch notes. It could have been mentioned to us beforehand that was on Tribble.
That was the problem. That was the problem right there. Okay, so they were gone for the weekend. Fine. I'm not getting paid on Saturday. I ain't gonna be there on Saturday either. So, but the point is that it wasn't in the patch notes. People felt that it was snuck in under the radar to, hopefully they won't spot it.
No, you see,
I don't think that's. Yeah.
Right. No, I know. I don't mean to cut you off, Peregrine, because I know you're about to say you don't think that's what the case is, because I don't either. And I think what it is you have something where you're redoing so much in a game, and so much is happening at once, and there's so many different teams working on different things that stuff is just gonna go, and that's why it's a test server to begin with. This isn't holodeck. If something breaks over the weekend, that's to be expected, in my opinion.
Yeah,
but then again, there was something on holodeck that broke, and for much the same reason, communication.
Okay.
Isn't that right, Irish?
I would go with that,
The mind griefing in soul space.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Oh, yeah. What's going on with this?
You don't have to target someone to launch mines. Now, back in end of September, when they started a thread talking about how they were going to alter tricobalts, how they were going to make them and mines have friendly fire, right? And people immediately said, friendly fire means griefing.
So
update. There's an update in the chat room from Gecko. Friendly mines have been changed to only affect foes and self.
There you go.
Right. Internally, that's not on holodeck right now.
Oh, okay. Okay,
but
so this is actually on
my
holodeck.
concern. No, but here's my concern. So they put this in the official thread. They ask for feedback. We give them feedback. Hey, you can't do this because it'll be griefing, and then it goes live.
Yeah. People that are heads down writing the code aren't necessarily people reading the feedback, and that doesn't scale very well. You know what I mean? That's a hard problem when you're working on a lot of different things at once, and you're getting a lot of different feedback on a lot of different things. How do you scale the ability to monitor all of that without...
Right. And then I suspect the problem with Stormshade recently, I guess, moving from one office to another, that right around this time, that might have had a problem with communication as well.
You see, it's just with the level of changes that we're seeing, the level of community feedback it's got to be just at a all-time high noise level, and it's just got to be even harder to go out and get the right stuff in and out of. It would be my guess. I think that's what we're seeing here. I don't think there's any malicious intent. All right, so let's move on to the Dilithium Exchange, because we're getting some more details on this, aren't we, Peregrine?
We are. The Dilithium Exchange is now live on Tribble, and I'm really looking forward to going to holodeck because I'm going to make a lot of money flipping Dilithium shards and C-store points.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So the way it's designed is a little overly complex for what it needs to be. And because of that, it's going to make people make mistakes when they're listing the price of their refined dilithium, when they're relisting their C-store points, and inevitably those mistakes are going to allow people who are buying and selling on the market, working the market, to profit from that.
Yeah, but that won't take too long for people to figure out the details. So you got to be a fast actor, an early bird to get all that.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah. Well, one of the tricks to it as well is... Go on, Peregrine.
Oh, I was just going to say, so there are two major things that people have concerns about. The first one is the price cap. So you list things by dilithium per C-store point. And there's a price cap, the minimum of 50 dilithium per C-store point and a maximum of 500 per C-store point.
Oh, okay.
Now, I know Irish, you and I talked earlier, and we, well, actually a while back, and we figured out that given the conversion rate, that dilithium is roughly equal to about 150 dilithium per C-store point, based on the price of emblems, VA token, VA ship, etc. Right?
Yeah, it was an MVAM we use, I think.
Right.
So that would be kind of like normalizing it from the cryptic prices.
Okay.
Right, using the vendor prices and the C-store prices to come up with a base. So people, of course, were complaining about that. They were talking about wanting to list their dilithium for, thousands of dilithium per C-store point, especially if they paid for their C-store points. So I think it may be good that they put these caps in at first, but eventually they're going to have to remove them or it's going to stifle the economy. Caps always stifle the economy.
Yeah, that's actually something that came up during the week. The whole Tribblegate thing led into a really interesting podcast UGC broadcast the other night, and Alt Exist on there. Actually, he's in the chat room right now talking about it. He had a whole series of economics that he ran on an economy using a ceiling and a floor, which we were hoping to try to get him on the show for community feedback segment. I don't know if it's going to happen this week, but hopefully we get that done soon because it's interesting to hear the guy talk about it from an economic standpoint.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the big thing I think we ran into, Peregrine, for me was the fact that we noticed you could have a block of, say, 400 points for sale, but people can come in and chip away and say, I want 10 of those, I want 15 of those. So you could be left with an unusable amount at the end of it. So I'm thinking it might be a good suggestion to get in there that what if it's an option that you can select that you want your order to be taken, or you want people to buy your stuff as one chunk, or if they can buy individual pieces. It might want to be an opt-in rather than just a default.
See, now here's the problem with that. Is allowing people to purchase small bits of your C-store points rather than requiring them to purchase the entire block that you put up. That benefits the people who are working the market, and it works against those casual players who maybe buy some points and put them up or throw their stipend up. And the reason for that is, okay, let's say, for example, Chris, you get your stipend, and you figure, okay, that's worth roughly X dilithium. I can use that dilithium to kit out my ship. So I'll take my 400 C-store points, throw it up on the exchange, get my dilithium, kit out my ship, good to go. Problem is, someone doesn't have to buy all 400 of your C-store points. Somebody can buy 80, then someone else can buy 100, and someone else can... Right. So at the end, you're left with 27 C-store points.
But then
you can't sell.
I can withdraw those from the exchange and then regroup with another bulk of C-store points and sell them. But you're saying I'm going to end up with these odd quantities.
Which is exactly what you could. And that's exactly why that works against casuals, because they're going to want to sell all their stuff, get the dilithium that they want, and then spend that. Whereas when I'm working the market, I'm going to put blocks of C-store points up. I'll get my dilithium, put it up for C-store points. It gets turned into dilithium again. I put it back up.
Now that I'm doing all this stuff full time, maybe I'll just figure out how to make my living selling and trading C-store points for dilithium. I can see it now. I'm going to make it big. That's how I'm going to power the whole network is on this new C-store market.
Should I be the one to point out here? Didn't you try this with Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, I didn't try to get rich on it. I know this does actually, it's funny. There is some things about the economy stuff that do remind me of Bitcoin. Hey, Bitcoin's going back up, man. It's going to happen.
You just keep beating that dead horse. By the way, the whole idea of partial orders, I've been told in the chat room that I need to credit that to Nikki from the Matt segment, or else I'm going to get Nikki aggro.
Oh, you don't want that. You don't want that.
So you're not going to get rich.
Honestly, the math cannon's a big cannon.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about anything else on the Dilithium Exchange, or should we move on?
I think that was the main one. Go on, Peregrine. You got more on this than I have.
No, there was one other thing, and that is that you're limited to a maximum of 5 active transactions. And that is actually going to cause problems with the economy, because when you artificially limit the amount of transactions, you're artificially limiting the economy. And when you decrease economic activity, that causes price spikes, which people who are buying and selling on the market can take advantage of. When you have a huge amount of economic activity, that makes the prices stabilize, which is better for the casuals who just want to buy or sell their dilithium.
Before we go on too much further, I want to talk about the STF updates, because there's STF updates along with some conjunction some workings in the event system. Peregrine, you want to tell us about this?
Well, I haven't had a chance to play any of the STFs on Tribble yet, but I have seen that the event system is up and running. And apparently the way that it's going to work is they're going to have the STFs be active as an event during certain times. And if you run the STFs during those times, then you'll get increased drops, and something about the rewards are going to be higher as well. And in fact, I believe they said that just this weekend, the first STF event with Infected is going to be starting.
Now, very cool. Huh. Well, that'll be something to kind of get my eye on. Now, I want to move on, keep us going here. Let's talk about maybe some bad news, because then we're going to wrap it up with some good news. So we'll kind of sandwich it in here. And that is that there's another Star Trek game out there that the Star Trek online community has been following, and that's Star Trek Infinite Space. It was going to be a free-to-play game, and it sounds like it might be having trouble, huh, guys?
Yeah, Game Forward just announced that they laid off over 100 people, and that they canceled 2 of their games, and that Star Trek Infinite Space, their free-to-play browser-based MMO, may end up being shut down if they can't find a co-publisher.
All right, we took a quick break there because we had some Skype issues, but we're back, and we want to wrap the news segment on a positive note. Peregrine, do you want to go ahead and officially announce a couple things that have been introduced recently?
I do.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
It looks like they were listening to your suggestion, Chris, because when this goes live, subscribers will be able to auto-refine Dilithium up to 1 week's worth.
That deserves a belly clap right there. Cuts off my head, though. My head gets cut off in the belly clap. But yeah, that's exciting. Sorry about the head cut off belly clap, but so yeah, this is going to work great. So if you don't have to log in for up to a week in order for you to get your 8,000 a day dilithium refined, which kind of takes away that hammer for not logging in, but still gives you an incentive because you still get the DOF system to play with, and you still have to log in at least once a week.
Well, per character, because when you log in, then it refines up to 1 week's worth of dilithium.
Okay, so that actually happens at the login time.
Right.
So you have to log in still. It doesn't just happen automatically, but it's worth it. That's good. That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Cryptic. I think that's really fair, and it's another checkbox in that in the subscriber column, which makes that free-to-play matrix a little more competitive, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to claim credit for this one, even though I've been told it wasn't my idea originally, is that those 250 emblems they took away from us at the 500-day vet reward?
Yeah.
They put the VA token there.
Da-da-da-da.
Yeah. So that means that now, essentially, we haven't lost anything. The subscribers, when free-to-play goes live, we haven't lost anything. We play the game just as we did before. Mm-hmm. Except that now we also have the DOF system, which I've heard some people like. You get to VA, you get your ship token, everything's done.
Yeah, that's great. And
just the
500-day vet reward's a perfect place for it, too.
It is, because it avoids the scamming issues that D'Angelo was talking about. And then you take your dilithium that instead of having all those marks of expiration at lower tiers that you couldn't use, it's all dilithium. You take it, you kit your ship out, you're good to go.
All right, well, there you go. Very nice. Anything else that we want to cover in this news? Irish, you're still there, right? We didn't lose
I'm here.
You. Yeah, we just have your avatar here on the video feed, but yeah. All right.
Well, I figured it'd make Peregrine look good.
Since we did have, there you go. Since we did have some Skype issues, we abbreviated the news a little bit, but we will have more in the show notes over at jupiterbroadcasting.com if you want to see some of the stuff that we ended up leaving out of the segment so we could keep things trucking. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming on and kicking around the news with me.
Thanks, Chris.
Have a good one.
All right, that's the news roundtable. Now, let's move on to math. And welcome to Math. Now, Nikki's back joining us. She's going to cover some new changes to the skill system. We talked a little bit about those last week. Also, the quad cannons hit the game, and there's been some changes to Torpedo Spread 3, and maybe there's even a little bit of controversy around all that stuff. A lot of things to cover this week, isn't there, Nikki?
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit of stuff to cover this go-around.
Yeah. So you want to start off with the skill system, the skill changes? It's like in flux still, right? But we've seen some of the space changes that are coming.
Yeah, we've seen the early revamp of the skill system. Sorry, I'm getting TeamSpeak pokes, but basically new skills, first base have hit tribble. We're still waiting on the ground revamp. So not everything's here yet, and as the dev post says, it is still in flux. But so far what we've seen, and we do have some early math numbers, so those of you who like
the numbers,
your math to come with numbers, funny how that works. We do have basically the new breakdown is going from skill breakdown going from 100 to 500 has now switched. So for the ascending tiers of 1 through 5, you will be investing 150, 300, 450, 600, and 750, tiers 1 through 5 respectively.
Oh.
And the other big notable change that we found was that the diminishing return per point investment has actually leveled out. It's the same across all the tiers.
Oh, that'll actually be a little easier to understand now.
Mm-hmm. So for the first point of investment, you get a plus 10 bonus. For level 2, a plus 6. Tier 3 and 4 points invested give you a plus 4. And then points 5 through 8 give you plus 2. And then your final 9th point is a plus 1.
Okay. So it's a very steady. It's like a more linear decline. It's kind of funny
it's much
way to put
more.
it, but.
Yeah, it's much more linear as opposed to I guess it's kind of a fairly flat bell curve that the other one used to be.
Yeah.
Because the other one, you'd get a return of 18, 30, and then 52 for tiers 3, 4, and 5. So that's been a pretty big overhaul. And the numbers, of course, break down to 75% of what you could originally have as far as bonus is concerned for checking into specific skills.
Okay.
So there's that. And one other thing I will just quickly mention, which is kind of a touchstoning thing more than a math thing.
Oh, I love those.
That I've noticed was that engineer and operations tiers tend to cross over quite a bit. And from the next gen, who do you remember talking the most with each other? Jordy and Data.
Yeah, sure.
Chief engineer, chief of operations. So those two cross over, and it's a nice little touchstoning aspect that I think is great.
Yeah, I love it when they work that in, because with all of the changes, I keep reminding myself it's a Star Trek game, and I love Star Trek, and this is, when they do that kind of stuff, it reminds you, kind of brings it all back home.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to talk about the torpedo spread stuff? Because I know we've got some people in the chat room a little hot under the collar about it.
Yep, there's some torpedoes, there was some torpedo spread issues, and from what I understand from the patch notes, the problem was that I think it was most notably torpedo spread 3.
Yeah.
What was happening there is that it was targeting up to 10 targets rather than tier 3, 4, and 5 targets respectively.
Nice.
So it's pretty sweet if you're in a Borg DSE and you want to kill your Borg really fast. But unfortunately, that carried over into PvP, and some PvPers were saying that, they'd be in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they might have been in the middle of the Fed ball or something, and because you're in the middle, you get it from all angles as well.
Jerem's like, it was awesome.
Yeah, you get it from all sides. So basically, if you were in the sweet spot, as it were, you get hit with this torpedo spread 3, and you'd be one-shotted, and it's like having feature in your cap and hold match.
Cryptic Borticus in the chat room is saying that instead of being spread out over multiple hits like high yield, it was all consolidated in one big hit, so the crits were just massive.
Yeah, you'd get just every so often lucky hit, you get one-shotted, and that's not to say one-shotting still doesn't happen every so often. I know in certain PvP matches, I know I've been lucky enough to one-shot people with B-Mobile out 3, but that's one target direct damage. It's not, one-shotting multiple people over an area, which is, kind of cheap.
So is this already fixed?
This is already fixed. It went into the most recent patch, so now your one-shotting with Torpedo Spread 3 isn't happening anymore, but it's still a pretty potent skill by the looks of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good stuff. So that's what we have for this math. Now, next week, or maybe very soon, we should see sort of the complete picture with the skill revamp and see the ground aspect eventually, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we should be seeing that, but we also still need to mention our quad cannon controversy.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
It's the This was actually happening through Jupiter Force yesterday afternoon and evening. We were all kind of scratching our heads because the quad cannons, basically that kind of small controversy was just that during the STOked interviews, Gecko was kind of saying that they were kind of the highest damage cannons in games, or in the game, and that might have been a misquote, or we kind of read it wrong, or either way, trouble with the wording. But basically what's going on is I actually had one of the Jupiter Force members go in, grab the quad cannons, and give me some screenshots of the tooltip. And what I noticed was that the equivalent duals and dual heavies do 358 DPS, whereas a quad cannon that a lieutenant general has is only doing 354. Now it's only 4 DPS, but when people kind of heard that it's supposed to be the highest damage cannon in the game, they immediately say...
What is the controversy over the 4 DPS?
Basically, it's over the 4 DPS as the current patch is. Before that, it was, I think, 2 DPS, so it was even
Wasn't
less.
there a complaint, too, that there was also a hit to your engine energy? Like, it wasn't just... When you fired it, it didn't just take from your weapon energy, but it also takes from energy from your weapon engines.
Yeah, it took some extra out of your engine power. I suppose that was kind of the trade-off, because it could have been minus 20 weapon power, which anytime those things go off, it's all of
but
a
doesn't
sudden...
that kind of make sense? Like you're doing quad cannons. Maybe you're redirecting some additional power from your engines to the weapon.
Yeah. I mean, that would make sense, because we saw since the debut of the movies, pretty much all modern starship designs was channeling phaser energy through the main engines, so that does make sense as far as the cannon goes. I think the big thing, though, is people expected these quad cannons to kind of be the newest heavy hitters,
the big
and
shiny,
all of a sudden it's like, it's not. And that was one thing that I was thinking of. It's like, well, if it's supposed to be a level-less cannon, it might not be the highest damage in the game because it's level-less. You don't have to do anything to get it other than fork out the money. And I think that's maybe Cryptic's way of avoiding pay-to-win. You know, people just could go out and buy the quad cannon Bird of Prey or the Sao Paulo when it finally comes out, and then all of a sudden everyone who's got the money to buy
we should mention actually that the cannons are only on the Klingon side right now until the Sao Paulo comes out for the feds.
Yes, they're still only on the Klingon side right now, and it might just be right now a pay-to-win thing. They don't want people to all of a sudden have a decisive...
That makes sense.
Ridiculously
that shows they're watching that at least. Now, Nikki, when the skill systems finalize up, do you want to do like a walkthrough on some of that stuff, or an overview when we get the final skill, whatever it's going to look like?
I plan on going through the new skills as soon as everything finally hits tribble. So we're still waiting on the ground, which we're still anxious to see. I know we're still anxious to see the point total, and how the split is going to work. Is it just going to be primarily UI, or is it actually going to be 2 separate totals, and are we going to have more points overall, or are we going to take the current points we have now and do like a 75-25 percentage?
Gecko says you won't see the ground skills probably for over a month. He's in the chat room, so it could be quite a while. So that's how a lot of the stuff is on the show. A lot of the stuff we're covering now won't be finalized, but I find that it helps if you wrap your brain around it as soon as you can, then when it doesn't all hit you like a brick wall of stuff you have to learn. So that's kind of our goal on the show. So we'll cover it as it comes out.
Yeah, I'll be keeping a close eye on it, and I was actually told that with the new skills coming out and being the build expert that I am, I'm supposed to take the new skill set and beat it like the red-headed named Admiral Murphy that it is.
Oh, poor Admiral Murphy. All he does is come on and do a good Foundry Files and pop into all those situations and gets a little razzing from time to time. I love it. All right, Nikki. Well, thanks for coming on and mathing us with all that stuff. And we'll chat with
you soon. Thanks for having me, Chris.
You bet. All right, let's move on to community feedback. Right.
Yeah, I think that's
And welcome to the community feedback segment. Now, just a quick one. This week, we wanted to kick things off and get you reintroduced to the community feedback and introduce you to Mav here from Jupiter Force, the head of Jupiter Force. Welcome, Mav, to the new community feedback segment.
Thank you. Thanks to be back again on the show.
Oh, you bet. Yeah, that's right. It's the second time for you, I think, right?
Yes, it is.
And do you want to reacquaint people with maybe the best way to get a hold of the show and things like that?
Well, the best way to get a hold of the show right now is to email us at STOked@jupiterbroadcasting.com.
Yeah.
That's the best way to get a hold of us. Just like the Foundry Files has Foundry Files at jupiterforce.net, I have asmic at jupiterforce.net to get a hold of me regarding anything regarding the fleet as well.
Okay.
What I'm here to talk about today is I'm here to reintroduce the revamped community feedback, in which I'm here to take your emails along with Chris and my co-host Cypher Tazer. We're going to go through all of your emails regarding show suggestions, game suggestions, your comments, questions, or concerns, maybe questions posted to the dev, and we're going to go through your emails, and we're going to make you more a part of Stoked.
Yeah, I love that. I'm really excited about this because one of the things that we haven't been able to do a lot when it was just the J-Man and I was really dig through everything that everybody was sending in, but now we're kind of farming it out a bit and getting some more hands on it, so we're actually going to be able to dig through a lot more of that stuff.
Right. We want your emails. We want to hear what you have to say, not only about the show or about the segments, but any comments, questions, or concerns you have regarding the game or its development, whether it be things implemented on Holodeck or in the free-to-play test server. If you think that you have a voice that's not being heard, we want to hear it, and we're going to get you on there. And if we can get a hold of you, get you selected, maybe you can even be on the segment.
Yeah, absolutely. We can work that in. All right. Well, cool. So send in your ideas, send in your questions, start talking to the new community feedback team, and let's get those things on there. So your ideas, all that kind of stuff, stoked at jupiterbroadcasting.com, and we'll start reading some more of those on a future episode of the show. Well, thanks, Mav. Anything else before we go?
Nope, we can't wait to hear from you. I'm also available on Twitter at asmic_JF for Jupiter Force. Please send us your emails. We want to hear from you.
Cool. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Stoked, and we'll see you right back here next week.